Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, the 24th of July, 2025. I'd like to welcome you to this month's meeting of Rother District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Brian Burson, the Chair of the Committee. You need to turn your microphone off, Councillor Galley. Thank you. There are 5 applications on the agenda this morning. Is there still an echo in the chamber? One moment. We're just coming to sort you out, Councillor Ganley. Okay, we'll... That's better. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. There are 5 applications this morning on the agenda. Before I start, I'd like to remind people that a planning committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting that the public may attend. Details of how people may address the committee in person may be found on the Rother District Council website. We're joined in the chamber this morning by the following people: Mike Hughes, Head of Planning; Matthew Worsley, Development Manager; Kirsty, another echo, Kirsty Cameron, Senior Legal Advisor; Paul Collick, Planning Lawyer; Sarah Shepherd, Development Management Team Leader; Julie Hollands, the Committee Clerk; and Eleanor Drew from Democratic Services, who's looking after our webcast. Joining online, we have 2 members of the committee, Councillor Tim Groner and Councillor Mrs Vicky Cook. They, just for the information, reminder to everyone watching, those 2 councillors can take a full part in the debate, ask questions, but they cannot vote as they are remote. There are no fire alarm tests scheduled for today, so in the event of an alarm, we're all to leave the chamber by the nearest fire exit and reassemble in the front car park. And everyone in the chamber is asked to make sure they've turned their phones off or on silent, please. Thank you. And now on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, minutes. Do I have your authority to sign the minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 26th of June 2025 as a correct record of the proceedings? Thank you. Thank you. And I'd just like to thank Vice Chairman Jimmy Stanger for chairing that meeting in my absence. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence and substitute. Do we have any apologies for absence and substitutes, please, Julie?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Mrs Barnes and Councillor Mear, Chair of the Council. Councillor John Barnes is standing in as substitute today for Councillor Mrs Barnes.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, are there any additional agenda items?
No, there's none, Chair.
And 4, are there any withdrawn applications, please?
No, there's none, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the disclosure of interests and dispensations. To receive any disclosures by members of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interest in matters on the agenda, the nature of any such interest and details of any dispensations obtained. Councillor McLaren.
Yes, in regard to item 8, I am a member of Battle Town Council.
Thank you. Just in case you didn't hear that because it wasn't that clear, Councillor McLaren declaring that she's a member of Battle Town Council. Councillor Mrs Cook.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I would also like to declare an interest as a member of Battle Town Council, and no, this particular application, item 8, is not in either my town council or my Rother District Council wards. Thank you.
Thank you. Members are reminded to declare those again when we get to that particular agenda item. Agenda item 6, the planning index. The last page of this index has this morning's 5 applications. And we now move on to the applications before us. As is usual, the officer in each application will present a report to the committee. And as there are no public speakers today, but there are 2 council speakers, members will go straight into asking any questions they have of the officer before debating the application in the round. Members will then, in due course, proceed to a vote on any motion arising from that debate. Agenda item 7, application RR 2025 1043L. And it's the proposed works comprise essential repairs and upgrades to the Grade 2 listed building aimed at resolving persistent water ingress issues, refurbishing water damaged areas and delivering comprehensive redecoration and performance improvements. The scope encompasses both external and internal remedial works. And I realise as I said that, I should have said first, we're talking about the colonnade on the promenade at Bexhill. And the reason for it being discussed this morning is it is a council-owned site. The recommendation on this is that it be resolved to grant listed building consent, and I'll now ask Sarah to present the report to the committee. Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. This application, as you've already said, relates to the Grade 2 listed King George V colonnade situated on Bexhill Seafront, and it's also within the Bexhill Town Centre Conservation Area and to the south of the Delaware Pavilion. As you can see there, it's colonnade has the semicircular central area as well. It's a listed building application, and as such, the only concerns with this application are in respect of considering whether there is any harm or not, and whether it preserves the importance of the heritage asset. There are various remedial works proposed, including refurbishment. As you can see in the photographs, this is the internal photographs of the building, which, as you can see, has been suffering considerable water ingress in recent times. There's a large amount of water damage both to the ceiling areas and penetrating down the walls. The primary issue is the water ingress, and the proposal is to apply a waterproofing system to the terrace and roof deck, which is above. This would be covered with matching materials after completion of the works. Drainage channels are also proposed to be added behind and below the terrace to divert water away from the retaining walls and the building. The installation of the cavity drain membrane system would additionally aid resolution of the water ingress issues. As you can see, this is the coastal office that is used, which is currently uninhabitable and dangerous. The proposal would refurbish this area to bring it back into use. It would include new welfare facilities, renewal of plumbing and electrics, and the installation of mechanical ventilation heat recovery systems to better ventilate the office. The existing installation would be replaced to reduce the risk of condensation and increase thermal performance. The cracks in the external render work are also part of the water ingress issue, and these would be repaired using lime-based materials. The failed glazing would be replaced within the existing units using heritage-compatible glass. Improvements to the shop front, entrance doors, ironmongery and replacement of any defective external lighting are also part of the proposals. Works to improve the kiosks and restaurant are proposed, including improved insulation and new backing and dividing walls, integrated T-points, updated finishes, lighting and building services. The works would implement a programme of urgent remedial and refurbishment works. The works are considered to be an improvement and necessary for the preservation of this historic heritage asset. The works would ensure the colonnade's continued role in supporting local heritage, economy and the community. As such, it's considered that there would be no harm to the setting or important features of the listed building arising from the proposal. As the Chair has already stated, the proposal is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anyone have any questions for the officer? Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you. It's got a long history, this colonnade refurbishment. How many years ago when, personally, I said this should not be done, the excavation under the colonnade. It's too expensive and didn't actually provide things that we wanted. But however, it was done. And the question I've got is that, and I haven't checked how many years ago it was, but there was huge excavations. The whole of the lawns there were dug up to solve what has been described as recent water ingress. There has been water ingress ever since the excavation. And in fact, not all of the colonnade has been able to be used because of that water ingress. I don't know how much it cost us as well when the fountains were there. The cost of the water and the cost of fixing this building is enormous for the council, but I know that's not an issue for planning. The thing that I want to know, and I'm not an engineer, is that it was fixed, supposedly, at huge cost. How do we know that this works are going to work? That's really my question. We're happy to give planning permission, I'm sure. It must be done. It must be done. But I don't know whether it's this forum where we need the reassurance or where we go for the reassurance that it actually is going to work.
Thank you. I doubt if the officer could even answer that, but she's willing to have a go. So, Sarah.
Yes, no, we've spoken to our projects team. The works that were undertaken around 10 years ago, as you say, did relate to the rear, but they didn't include waterproofing membrane to the roof of the building and the terraced area where people can stand, and that's where the problem of the water ingress has arisen more recently. So these works, they've had engineers and surveyors with heritage experience involved in looking at this, drawing up the proposals. They apparently worked on the Madeira Drive arches and things in Brighton recently, so they are experienced in heritage work, and the proposals are considered that they will resolve the issues that have arisen, though they didn't fully sort it last time, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I don't think she had her fingers crossed when she said that. Councillor Barnes.
Yes, the only bit of what Sarah said which raised the slightest question in my mind is the alteration to internal walls. I'm taking it that these are not historic and were part really of what will have been altered at the time of the excavation 10 years ago. But when you're playing around with the internal arrangement, although it has no impact on the outside scene, you are playing around to some extent with history, and we try and make those changes legible. But if these are very recent changes, it doesn't trouble me at all. But can I know something of the history of the internal walling?
Thank you. Sarah?
Yes, as I did read out, it's the addition of new backing and dividing walls. So they're not actually taking out any historic fabric, but they do need to do some new works to help preserve what's there, and as we said, including the what did I refer to? The ventilation and things that needs to be improved as well to improve air circulation, and that will then help with the removal of condensation and things from within the building as well. So it's a comprehensive package that they've been looking at to preserve what they can, use matching materials where they need to for any replacements, and with some additional new elements going in to help preserve the original.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Ganley.
If there are no further questions, I move approval.
Moved by Councillor Ganley, seconded by Councillor Gray, but in fact you didn't know behind you there was a hand up.
Oh, sorry, I've got
So
one
Councillor Pranjo's going to probably get in one more question.
more. Sorry.
No problem.
The other question I had was, because it's such a high-profile area in Bexhill, much loved area in Bexhill, do you make it a condition, can we make it a condition that the applicant actually deals with the public relations really well?
I'm sure that's not a planning condition. That's going to fall on probably the council. But also in relation to your other point, I think obviously checking whether or not this is actually going to work and holding them to account lies either with full council or through cabinet, of which you'll be a member next week. So I think I managed to dodge that. So thank you. So does anyone want to debate any further, or should we go to the vote?
I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Groner. Didn't see it.
Sorry, it was just following on from Councillor Prochak's inquiries as into the quality of the work. Is there a guarantee in there? And how long is?
I'd say that was my comment. I think that lies with the council and or cabinet rather than planning to decide on. There's a guarantee. Let's hope there is, because as I say, as we've commented, this is another go at trying to solve the problem. So, thank you. In that case, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of granting listed building consent, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. That was carried unanimously, and now we move on to agenda item 8, application RR 2024 1589P, which is North Trade Road, land north of in Battle, and it's the variation of Section 106 agreement imposed on RR 2018-2666P to remove affordable housing obligations and replace with a late stage review. And the recommendation on this one is that it be resolved to vary the Section 106 agreement to remove affordable housing obligations and replace with a late stage review. And the reason it's with us today is the head of planning has called it in because it involves the removal of affordable housing. No one's registered to speak on this one, so we're going to go straight to, sorry. Oh, sorry, repeat the declarations.
I'd like to declare an interest as a member of Battle Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Field, I'll come to you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And Councillor Mrs Cook. Thank you.
Chair, I wasn't redeclaring. I was putting my hand up, so I'd like to speak.
I realise. And Councillor Mrs Cook, I think you wanted to redeclare.
I certainly did. Thank you. I'd like to redeclare as a member of Battle Town Council and state that neither this particular application is in neither of my wards of Battle Town Council nor of Rother District Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the Development Manager, Team Leader, Manager, Sarah Shepherd, will present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, see and has been read to you, this application is with regard to a variation of Section 106 agreement. It's brought in accordance with the wording of the Constitution, which requires us to bring applications to committee where the affordable housing elements, financial elements are to be discussed, altered, whatever. In this case, it's in respect of removing the affordable housing obligation and replacing it with a late stage review within the wording of the Section 106 agreement. The application site is towards the western end of North Trade Road. We've got a large property to its west with the intervening areas here. There's 3 dwellings already under construction in there. The application dwellings to the southern side of the road are well established and have been there for some time. You have the old hospital site, which is also now residential, to the east, which is within the development boundaries. This is only a short way away. You have areas outside to both the north and south of the site, which comprise some woodland areas which are retained in the ownership of the Beach Farm estate, and they undertake maintenance to the trees in those areas. The application site permission was granted at outline in 2018 for 20 dwellings. We subsequently had reserved matters in 2021, and these were varied by new owners in 2023. The application site there, as you can see, they've already been clearing the site. Some of the road has been put in. The main road is the road that serves the Beach Farm estate, which serves the farm and the commercial units down there, and that is used to access this site. There's to be no change to the proposed layout of the site. The 20 units remain, and we have a mix of 2, 3 and 3 4-bed units there. The others are all 2 and 3 bed units. They will stay the same. And we were having discussions with the previous site owners regarding viability. The new site owners then continued those discussions. We have had 2 reviews of their viability assessment, and this year the review has been by an independent assessor, and it has included a review of the costs for the site as well. We've actually been able to review actual costs because they've submitted all the tender details, so we do have accurate indications of costs. They've also submitted details for proposed sales values as well, and those have been independently assessed and found to be reasonable, if not to the higher end of the expectations for sales. As you can see within the report at pages 18 and 19, we've set out the brief summary tables there with the applicants' details and our independent assessment, which have been undertaken by Altair. You can see that we have not agreed all the information that was originally sent. Some of the details we have increased or lessened depending on whether the accuracy that we think should be applied. You will note that they do reference a profit, but that profit is less than the 17.5%, which is the normal guideline that we tend to look at for developments. So on the basis of everything that's been set out, I might just add, there is a note in the report to the fact that we have also chatted with all the registered providers for affordable housing. They've been involved continually in discussions with our own housing officer, and none of them are prepared to take on any units on this site, even if it was viable, whether they were for rental or shared ownership. And those discussions have been in May this year as well. So all in all, the site is not considered viable to provide affordable housing at this stage. What we have negotiated with the applicants is the incorporation of a late stage review. Now that review would take place in 2.5 years' time if the development has not proceeded and been completed. On the basis that if we get the housing now, then that's good, and we know it'll be full market housing, but it will be additional housing for our district, And as you know, we are well below the 5-year supply at the moment. So on the basis of all the information, we are recommending that the Section 106 agreement is varied to remove the provision of affordable housing on the site and include a late stage review that we will review costs and potential sales values if the development isn't completed within the next 2.5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think before I come to questions, because it might include them, I'll come to Councillor Field, who wishes to speak on this. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chair. To say I am shocked by this would be not true, because I'm not at all shocked. This happens time and time and time again. What I am is absolutely appalled that it's got this far. We see developers do this. They have outline consents, they promise the earth, and then lo and behold, they build roads and they cannot deliver, they say, what they have promised, which I find quite astonishing, because these are professional people. They survey lands, they know what costs are, and they know that if they get a consent in 2018 and they're not going to start building until 2025, there will have been inflation. Inflation is not a new concept. It's happened for a very, very long time. So why are these professionals not building in contingencies to their financial planning? And I have to wonder why, when we're doing initial negotiations with them, are we not asking for their contingencies to make sure that when we get to this stage, we're not saying, oh, we can't put the affordable housing in, the social housing in, because, oh, we can't afford it. What other business in this country is allowed to make a guaranteed profit? This is supposed to be a market we're operating in. You run your business because you're a professional. You know the ins, you know the outs, you know what to expect. And if you don't make a profit, then you have to take it on the chin and do better next time. We are not here to support private enterprise. We are here to deliver housing for our residents and social housing for a section of those residents. And I would also say, having followed the ups and downs of the housing company, we also know that housing associations aren't awfully keen on adopting or buying small little plots of social housing. It's not in their business plans, and they do know what they're doing. What I don't understand is why we can't bundle up little bits of housing here and little bits of social housing there in all our applications and sell them as one project to a housing association, and then they would be deliverable. So I am a bit put out about this, to put it mildly, but it's not actually just this committee's fault. It isn't this committee's fault at all. It is the fault of central government. And I would hope that this council could write to central government and lobby in the strongest terms for changes to this ridiculous scheme whereby we are guaranteeing private developers the right to make a profit at the expense of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. We're now on to questions for the officer. Councillor Stanger, Councillor Creaser, Councillor Ganley. Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, just relating to the affordable, I know it's been checked, verified. So what's the big difference, $500,000, between the applicant and Altair's? So it's the benchmark land value. So Altair said 100,000, they said 600,000. And obviously a percent within the other things as well, which adds up another 100 grand. What's the difference in that between, so that's our is it the Altair is our assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, and applicant 600 grand, benchmark land value. They said 600, we said 100. So what is that? What is it?
That's how they valued the land. They valued it at more than we did. We were on back to the original agricultural value. They were trying to value it more, which would have then skewed the figures even more, would have put them in more of a negative, and we disagreed with that way of calculating it, and have only done it, as you say, at 100,000 being the original land use value and not the value as a residential site, so to speak. So that actually, and so even with us changing that value, it still puts it in an unviable context.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Creaser.
We had some training not that long ago about how developers are supposed to look at the percentages of what they're doing. So the land bit, the build bit, profit bit. Now, the thing of it is if you've paid an awful lot of money for the land, or you think it's worth a lot of money, you can't keep adding that in and then expecting to still have the same amount of profit. So the actual idea is supposed to be the land plus build. If it costs more, they get less profit. We're not here to provide a vehicle for private developers to make profit. Yes, it's lovely, and I know we're over a barrel because of all the things that we're not being able to deliver, but this is absolutely insane, nothing to do with our colleagues at all, but these people are making a request which is not appropriate and it is not acceptable, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to deliver housing, but we have a duty of care to ensure that we deliver housing for the local people who don't earn loads of money, who can't afford to have, sort of affordable rents. 80% of an awful lot of money is still a lot of money. We need social housing, and that's what they've tried to achieve here. And I think that actually these developers are playing fast and loose, and I don't like it. And of course, that's my particular thing. I like to have social housing.
Just a reminder, this is for questions at the moment to the officer.
Well, my question is, why aren't they kicking them back? Why aren't they saying to them, tough luck, take it out of your own profit? There you go. There's a question.
I suspect we can't kick back. Our version of kicking back was to have our own independent viability study, which unfortunately has supported, or with different figures, has supported their claim of it being unviable. Sarah?
Yeah, can I just say that, we've had two independent reviews of this information. One was undertaken last year, pre the application coming in. And then, as you say, we had the committee had the training at the beginning of this year, and there was another review because some of the figures we didn't agree with, and we had another review, and that further review included an independent assessment of costs as well. If I can just, Councillor Field is quite right in what she was saying earlier, that this isn't just our problem, it's a national problem, and the government not linking up affordable housing grants and things with what actually happens in the planning circle. But there was a huge hike in construction costs because of COVID, and that hike in costs didn't reduce again. That's just stayed there. So any of the permissions that we granted pre-COVID, and they were looking at their costings based on those pre-construction hike figures, and so consequently after that construction hike, as you know full well, we've had several queries of this nature now where they are querying the viability because there has been such an increase, a huge increase in construction costs, in employment costs as well. There is a shortage of tradesmen in the building industry. So all these things are conflicting, and no, it's not what we want to do, and we would like to have the affordable housing, but it's not what the market and the grant system is dictating at the moment, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Just before I come to you, Councillor Ganley, it's going to be Councillor Ganley, Councillor Mrs Cook, Councillor Barnes, and then I'll pick it up again, but Mike Hughes wanted to say anything.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some of the points that Sarah made very well. I think that it's fair to say that none of us like this situation in terms of, we all know how important affordable housing is. A number of councillors have mentioned that. But we don't design the system, the planning system in this country, but we do have to operate within it. A comment that Councillor Field alluded to. Both officers and members do fight hard for affordable housing. It is important to this council, very important to this council. Sarah said it's been independently assessed. We don't agree with all their figures, but we still don't think it's viable after doing that assessment. So, that's important. Policy, the development plan policy and PPG does allow for viability considerations to be taken into account. I think here, there's also the housing officer view is expressed in the report as well. He's the expert on this as well, and he's effectively agreeing with the proposal. So we don't like it, but for the circumstances that Sarah in particular has explained well, that's why the recommendation is before you. I will say that there is still public benefit associated with the proposal in terms of, there'll be 20 households that will be housed by this. There would also be an increased SIL bill compared to if it had been affordable. That is a silver lining. I accept that. And also, as Sarah said, there are some 2 and 3 bedroom units on the scheme as well. So they are small constellations, and from an officer point of view, we don't like this recommendation, but this is a system in which we have to operate, and as I say, we have done everything we can to independently assess this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Ganley.
Sarah has taken the words out of my mouth, and I wish she'd stop stealing my words. It is 7 years since this was approved, and as she says, the cost of building materials, I know, having done some property development myself, it's just extraordinarily increased. I think they've more than doubled the costs. We have the choice. We can refuse the application, in which case no houses will be built, or we can approve the application, and in which case 20 houses will be built. Up to the committee to make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder again, this is for questions to the officer before we start a general debate. I'm now coming to Mrs. Vicky Cook. Councillor Cook.
Thank you very much. From a very sunny Isle of Man at the moment. I just wanted to ask a question. Sarah, what will happen if we say, no, we won't vary this S106?
Well, as Councillor Ganley just said, either they stop building and don't build and we don't get the 20 houses, or they could take us to appeal or review of the decision. And I think our head of planning might have something to say about the prospect of appeal, as he has experience.
So would they just walk away from the site? Would they not even complete the houses that are half already built anyway?
No, they've started on site, we're aware of that, but no, they could just stop works. If they don't think they're going to get anything back from it, then they probably won't want to put any more into the site.
Okay, thank you. This is tragic. Battle, we were against this development completely, the loss of trees, the disruption along the North Trade Road. And this was such an ideal site for affordable homes. We're close to 2 schools, it's level access to the town, and it's on a bus route. And I think it would be, I echo absolutely everything that Councillor Field said. I think it would be very, very sad. But as Councillor Ganley said, and as Mr Hughes said, it is vital that we get houses built. We do need houses. But I'm very, very saddened. I didn't quite understand your comment, Sarah, about not being able to find a provider for their affordable homes. Is that what you said?
No, it's about having a provider that will take on affordable homes if they're built on the site.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. No further comment.
Thank you. I'm then going to come to Councillor Barnes, then it'll be you, Councillor Ganley, and then, Councillor Groner, TG, same initials. Councillor Barnes, then it'll be Councillor Groner.
I'll resist the temptation to make comments. I have 2 questions, which seem to me, they're probably slightly out with the scope of the planning committee, but I think they're relevant to our discussion. One is, how did this 17.5% return figure emerge? Is it in statute, or is it custom and practice?
Yes.
Because we are in an oligopoly situation in housing, and we appear to be reinforcing that by really making the market more and more beneficial to the big providers and less to the people who build out fast the small developers. So that's my first question. My second is really around the increasing problem we have, as I know from chairing the Housing Task Force, with registered providers not taking on small developments. This is one of the reasons why we recommended in that strategy that we ourselves become a registered provider. And I do wonder whether the housing officer has assessed this against our affordable housing requirement, because we still have a homelessness problem. And I just wonder whether we've looked at any of these houses, not necessarily the full number, but even a small number, to see if they could contribute to our homelessness problem. Has that been done, or is the housing officer simply been asked his opinion on the viability assessment?
Sarah first, and I think Mike's going to come in.
Yeah, okay. The guidance figures for profit is based broadly between 15 and 20%, because that is what loan companies, banks and people will be looking for when they loan money to developers in the first instance. The 17.5% is the, as you said, Councillor, is the general practice figure that tends to be used, falling within that line. I know Mike's got experience and he can explain a little more in the moment. In terms of whether we've looked at housing, we don't actually have any money particularly to put into the affordable units on this site at the moment, as far as I'm aware. But it's looking at, sorry, Councillor, it's the viability, looks at the viability of the site in terms of all the costings, in the terms of the cost of building, to the standards for the RP, in terms of the sill amounts, and that all gets taken into account. So it's not just about an RP, whether there's an RP available, it's looking at the viability of the cost of building it with the affordable in it as part of those costs.
Because it's an immediate point, I'm going to come back to Councillor Barnes, but I don't want to get sidetracked on a planning committee of talking about registered providers, because that's not directly affecting the application between us. But Councillor Barnes.
It is relevant to viability, however, because we have actually put extra money into the capital programme as a council to enable the purchase of houses for the homeless, the temporarily homeless. I'm not sure what the situation is in Battle in that regard, but I just hope that has been done, because it could affect the figures. The housing market is very depressed at the moment, which is why actually affordable housing is very often attractive to the developer.
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously the housing officer isn't here, but we have, I personally have spoken to him around other sites and, potential for the council to get involved. He is very familiar with the programme of when we can and can't get involved. So I would have full confidence that he was aware of that when he puts these comments together. Just going back to, and I'm loath to add anything to what Sarah said because she explained it so well, but when it comes to that 15 and 20% profit margin, and, this is not a secret. If you look on page 19, there's a line, that item there for profit. This is a significant amount of money. But there has to be an incentive for them to build. Obviously, we live in a capitalist country. I personally, within the last couple of years in another job, have lost a couple of appeals where the profit margin was 18.5%, so greater than here. So my experience is that inspectors tend to take a fairly beneficial approach towards developers in these things. I would argue that actually, Battle is a very pleasant town. The risks of developing here are probably more limited than they are elsewhere. So I think that's just a context point. I wouldn't necessarily give a great deal of weight to what I've just said, but that's just a context point. 17.5% is not unusual. As I said, it goes back to what I said before. We don't design the system, but we do have to operate within it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Groner, then Councillor Stanger, then Councillor Projak. Councillor Groner.
Yeah, apologies if we're retreading over something, but to what degree or extent is the viability assessment embedded in the planning law?
It clearly states in our policies and within government guidance, within the planning policy guidance information, that if a developer can prove that a development isn't viable, then that's something that we have to consider in weighing other things. I mean, in this instance, they're saying it's not viable to provide the affordable housing, and that's how it's been assessed. But that is embedded within national and local policy, that facility is there for that process to be undertaken.
Okay. And when did they first get permission to build?
2018.
The outline permission is 2018.
That's 7 years, in which, of course, the materials go up.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Councillor Stanger. I'm just going to explain. Councillor McLaren, I will come to you, but I'm going to the committee members first. Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, just really covering what most of my colleagues have said. It's very disappointing. The profit will still be... There's still questions, is it? Oh, okay. No.
I'll come back to you then. Councillor Prochat, have you got a question?
I have. As Councillor Field very, very eloquently put it right at the beginning, this is a government problem, and we're stuck here. This is the only country in Europe that has this system where the developer has got to make profit, and substantial profits. I mean, we're talking about millions. So it's a government, and we used to be thought to be weak on 106s, that we couldn't negotiate and that we weren't very strong. And the developers clearly are very adept at 106. But this particular application, I think, has shown that we've done a better job, or best job that we could have done in challenging this 106. And my question really is to Mike, are there any other councils that are actually challenging the 106 successfully? Because although you say we've got the bonus of 20 houses, we don't need 4-bedroom houses, by the way. Are there any examples of councils that are challenging this? And can we actually try to tell, because it's both governments, the past and the present, who do not understand that, well, they do understand because they get big donations. But how can we challenge this as a small rural council?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, excellent question. I think obviously since 2018 we've had COVID, we've had the Ukraine war, we've had the cost of living crisis, which we've all felt. I think that the way that we challenge affordable housing and try and provide as much as possible is through the independent review mechanism, which is what's been done here. It's by, as Sarah has done in this case, looking at their actual costs and having somebody independently, a quantity surveyor appointed by us, going through and looking at those costs. That's how we do it. And unfortunately, I think it's about recognising that where that viability is in the developer's favour, which it is in terms of not providing affordable here, that's why you've got the recommendation that you've got. The reason this is before committee is that I wouldn't say it's unheard of for developers to come back on the affordable housing in terms of the quantum, but they will always come back to this committee, and we're not dealing with these applications week in, week out, that's what I say, more often than we would like. So the way that we challenge it is by independently assessing it. That's probably the best that we can do. And where we've got that independent advice to back up our position, if it's said here that affordable housing was viable, we would not be having this discussion. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren, is it a question or a comment? Question, thank you.
I'm very disappointed indeed at the removal of the affordable housing obligation for this scheme, as it's very much needed in Battle. and I do understand the issues of the national system that we work within, but I would like to ask, what can we do to minimise the risk of this happening in the future with other schemes?
I like the question, and I will touch on it at the end of this matter, but I think that's not a question that relates to this application. I don't think what we can do in the future is a question for our officers. But it's, you'll see why I said that when I come to the end. Councillor Barnes.
Yes, if we've come to the end of questions, I should like to make a comment, and indeed I might begin with Councillor McLaren's question. To my mind, the answer to that lies within our housing strategy. And the real answer, frankly, is Section 106 obligations in housing are increasingly being invalidated by economic circumstance. Yep. I have some sympathy with developers who actually build, very little sympathy with developers who buy agricultural land, go it through planning permission, and then sell it on to the builder. And I have a horrid suspicion here that my sympathies are with the current builders because they probably did not buy at agricultural value from the existing applicant. And I think that's one of the problems here, that you're now dealing with a different builder, and he's facing a very different picture, both on demand and supply. The honest answer, and it's one which its council needs to face, is that we need to build council houses. It's very simple. If we want affordable housing, we are going to have to build it, because the registered providers are no longer building, because they have to update their existing housing stock. But all of this is in the housing strategy which you have adopted. We're dealing here with planning. And to my mind, we are caught between a rock and a hard place. None of us like what has happened. We do recognise that there has been a very substantial increase in costs since 2018. We've used Altair, who are a very reputable firm of consultants, and they have checked, and the figures, I'm afraid, stand up to the kind of scrutiny that we very rarely give viability applications. We do challenge them, but here we actually can see all the figures set out for you, including the profit figure. But we don't set the profit figure. That's in the national policy guidance, and we really would lose an appeal on this one. So I fear, very reluctantly, the lessons we learn are to say to Cabinet, you do need to actually begin to think about restarting the Council House programme. But in the meantime, we have to grant this viability assessment, because we would certainly lose on appeal. So I must say I move with great reluctance approval.
Seconded. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Ganley, but Councillor Mrs Cook had a hand up.
Yes, thank you. This is a question for Mike, if I may, please. I know I'm going to get asked this at Battle Town Council. When this planning permission was given in 2018, Battle didn't have its neighbourhood plan approved, so therefore we were only entitled for 15% of the SIL. If we remove this S106, are we likely to get 25% SIL on the remaining 20 houses, or will we still only get the 15%?
Sarah's going to answer that one.
Yep, this is exactly the same as the Blackfriars development. It's the date of the original approval that applies in respect of calculating SIL.
I did expect you to say that, but, you know, Mike did mention a silver lining, and I think this is more like a bronze one. Thank you.
Councillor Groner.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of concur with Councillor Barnes. Well, there's two reasons why this would probably have to be approved. One is that it would be easily contested at appeal. The other is that if there are no providers to operate or purchase the affordable portion of the development, then it's sort of a moot point. And it's still 20 houses being built. But just in the long run, it just seems that this is taxpayers' money inflating land costs. If builders keep overpaying for land and we keep propping them up when it doesn't quite work out, all we're doing is perpetuating a sort of bad system. And the building of council houses where the council can acquire land itself at agricultural or near agricultural prices is obviously the only way of breaking it. And perhaps if a few developers lose profit and don't do well, maybe smaller developers will come in with cheaper land prices. We have to break the cycle somehow. So it's a bit more of a general comment, but it can't continue like this. And maybe we set dates on what moves forward, because there was considerable inflation caused from the war, rise in global interest rates. I mean, it's a cost of finance as well as building materials that has impacted developers, and you have to have some sympathy for that if you don't want to crush the whole industry. But maybe soft date where we go, well, you know what the costs are now, and stop buying land for so much money. Go back to the landowners and say, I can't afford to pay you the same deal.
Thank you.
That's more of a point.
Thank you, Councillor Granite. Sarah's going to come back to you on that, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Field.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind councillors that we didn't agree the higher land value that was put in. The benchmark land value they put in as 600,000, and we reduced that to 100,000. So we weren't taking into account the extra money that they paid for the site.
No, that's not that's not what I'm talking about in that. It's more of a general thing. I mean,
Right,
it's just something that goes on.
In terms of viability, we didn't take that into account this time.
That's not what I was addressing, but thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, could I just return to Councillor Cook's point as well? When Mike said that there would be extra SIL payments, because obviously they get a reduction in paying SIL if they're providing affordable housing. So in terms of there will be extra SIL payments because they have to pay SIL on all the units now. And so while you get the same percentage in Battle as before, you would get some extra income because obviously your percentage will be of a higher amount. So they will get some extra monies coming to Battle.
Yeah, thank you.
So Councillor Cook, it's somewhere between bronze and silver.
And council tax revenue.
And council tax revenue. Before I move to the vote, I'm going to come to Councillor Field, who wanted to speak.
I think I'll take it offline, actually. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more comments? No? Right. Move to the vote then. The proposal is that it be resolved to vary the Section 106 agreement to remove affordable housing obligations and replace with a late stage review. All those in favour, please show. I think it is reluctantly, but that is carried unanimously. I was then going to I prepared something to say, but most of you have covered the bits that I was going to say about the 7, and just using this one as a timescale, not using anything else from this, but 6-7 years to get to this stage, when obviously the costs for the reasons that other people have said have gone up, but of course the need for affordable housing over those 6 years has also gone up. And if I'm going to come down to the government here, because I'm not sure what we can do. I take Councillor Barnes's point about the housing strategy, but if the government really wants to build its 1.5 million homes, and it wants people to be able to afford to buy those homes, it has got to look at the planning system completely in its entirety. It needs to look at the housing supply chain and including viability, and take steps to improve the delivery of permitted applications. I sometimes get the feeling that they blame all the ills of the planning system on the planning committees, But planning committees, even allowing what you said about the housing strategy, planning committees don't build houses. Planning committees can't make them affordable. All we can do is permit appropriate homes to be built in suitable locations. The rest is out of our control, and it's really frustrating. But thank you. Councillor Gowley.
They also blame developers' land banking, which has been, that theory has been shown quite clearly to be cobblers. Right. I think that's the technical term.
I think it's the Daily Mail theory.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
You've got to give up your
I think
subscription to
the
the
word
Sun.
you were looking for was unsubstantiated. Right, okay, thank you. Moving on now to agenda item 9, which is application RR 2025 537P, and this is Anchor Cottage, Horns Corner, Catsfield, TN33 NDT, and it's for the erection of an annex for family member to previously approved dwelling at Anchor Cottage, Plot 2. Called in today by Councillor Field, although it's not on her ward, there wasn't a ward councillor at this time, I understand, and called in for overdevelopment on this site. The recommendation is that it be resolved to grant full planning permission. So we'll hear from Sarah again, who will present the report to the committee, and then we'll hear from Councillor Field as to why it was called in, and then we will ask questions and begin deliberations. Sarah.
Right, here's the location of the site. There was formerly one property on this site, and it was granted permission last year to be subdivided and for 2 units to be created. You have plot 2 to the north, plot 1 to the south, closer to the junction with Powder Mill Lane. It's the aerial photograph. You can see that the site's surrounded by trees to its northern and eastern sides, with hedgerows to the frontage. The site lies to the north of Catsfield, the lane continuing off the map here. And it's within the High Weald National Landscape. There's a strong tree screen to the rear of the site, as can be seen, and the annex is to be located behind the approved garage. As you can see from the plan there, the house to the north, the garage with the access drive. A footpath would lead from the main house and driveway round to the annex to the rear, which would be up in the corner area, sort of behind where that mound of soil is. And as you can see, you've got the tree screen there. The annex is a relatively small building. It's got quite a open living area with a living dining kitchen area with a bedroom and bathroom. The bedroom has a dressing room, as it's not big enough to put a wardrobe or anything in there. And it would share the access and parking and garden areas of the main house. The building is not considered excessive inside and would appear as a subservient outbuilding to the main dwelling. It's to have brickwork and roof tiles to match the main dwelling, with a hipped roof around it. This is the image of the proposed new dwellings that are being built, and they have a garage with a storage facility above it. And as you can see on the plan there, the annex is over in this eastern corner behind the garage. Excuse me. It is proposed, as we would normally do, to put a condition to restrict occupation of the annex so that it is only occupied by family members of the main dwelling, so associated wider family. We do consider whether it's appropriate to apply a Section 106 agreement or not. I don't think there's many members here now that will recall some years ago this was a matter that was considered by the Planning Committee, and it was decided that where you have a large or very detached outbuilding for an annex that could easily be, and the plot could easily be subdivided, then we would look to impose a legal agreement. In this situation, the annex is fairly close to the dwelling by the garage there, and it would not lend itself readily to subdivide the plot, and hence it is only a condition that is recommended on this application and not a legal agreement. To summarise, the annex is not considered to be excessive in size. It would share amenities such as parking, access and gardens with the host dwelling. The position is to the rear corner of the plot, where it is well screened from both the street scene and the surrounding landscape by the existing trees and hedges. And as such, it would not have a harmful impact on the High Weald National Landscape. It's on an existing residential site. The landscape and character of the High Weald National Landscape would therefore be conserved, and there is additional planting and some replanting to be undertaken on the site, which would add additional enhancements to the site. The property would not harm the residential amenities of any neighbouring properties, and the application is therefore recommended for approval with a condition. Members will note that you did have an update circulated to you yesterday. The condition originally referred to permitted solely as additional accommodation. That will now be reworded to say permitted solely as ancillary accommodation for the dwelling on plot 2. And that's my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Field, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you said, I'm not the local member, but I was at a Catsfield Parish Council meeting because I'm their county councillor, and it was after Councillor Pearce had resigned and before Councillor McLaren was elected. So the Parish Council was very concerned about this. They believed that it was overdevelopment of the site. And also it's at Horns Corner. Now, I can remember, because I've got a long memory, that an application at Horns Corner is the only time this committee has ever overturned a highways comment, because it's a horribly dangerous bit of road, and there are accidents almost weekly there, and I worry about increased traffic. It's also, it's the overdevelopment aspect that bothered the Parish Council, particularly as, in most people's views, an annex is joined on, it isn't separate. And I notice in your hierarchy that a separate annex is number 3, so clearly not as annexy as one which is actually joined on to the building. And I am concerned it could become a separate dwelling, and so is the Parish Council. And I was just wondered, I mean, this putting a tie on it, I think, is very helpful. I wondered, though, how that was going to be enforced and how it was going to be enforced in perpetuity. Because, of course, one couldn't doubt the validity of the present occupants of the house and what they want to do for their family members. One wouldn't want to doubt that at all. But they won't be there forever, and the situation may well arise when they decide to move, for whatever reason, that then we have 2 buildings on one plot with a tie, which could, I would imagine, very easily be lifted. So I wonder how it will be enforced in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. And I'm going to start with the questions, because what you've just asked is my question about the condition and the fact that we've decided not to go down the legal agreement route, but we've gone to the condition. How enforceable is that even 10 years down the line when possibly that family isn't there anymore?
As with lots of these things, we are somewhat reliant in terms of enforcement on being advised that a situation has changed or that somebody is operating in breach of a condition, and we would have to take enforcement at that time. We don't have the resources to go around checking compliance with conditions. I don't know how many full-time officers you'd need to do that, given how many conditions we put on things. Obviously, some conditions they're required to submit for discharge and they need to do them prior to completion, and people will do that because if they're outstanding at the time they sell, then the solicitors will pick those up. But I mean, this is a standard condition. it is frowned upon to use a legal agreement where a condition would suffice, and I suspect our legal colleagues can give further advice on that if you would like, and we do have to be proportionate and apply things that are proportionate to the development in front of us. You know, there is a concern, and we have had it ourselves on other applications about annexes becoming separated, and that's why we do look at the size of them, we do look at the context and relationship with the main dwelling, and whether it is feasible or not to perhaps subdivide that in the future. And I would be honest, we have had cases where people have started occupying annexes as residential units. Generally speaking, we've picked those up within the time limit and been able to take appropriate enforcement action against them because there are time limits involved.
Thank you. And as Mr. Collick, the lawyer, was nodding through most of your comments there, thank you. Councillor Barnes.
I think my question, on the assumption that none of these buildings have been built yet, or even started, we are dealing with 3 buildings, not 2. Normally an annex is an existing building which is going to be treated as an annex. Here we have 3 buildings, none of which have been built, and I do wonder why the annex has not been combined with the garage or actually put adjacent to the house. It does seem to me a very odd layout that is going to be created here with the potential for separation. And I just wonder why we haven't gone back to the applicant and said, why don't you look at combining the annex, at least with the garage, which would take it proximate to the house?
I'll just reshare the plan so that you can see that again. As you can see, it is quite a confined site. The 2 plots are independently owned now, and it's only one of the applicants of one of the new dwellings that is applying for the annex for a family member. The dwelling is the darker bit there. It would be quite constrained to put an extension onto that dwelling without impacting the main garden area to the rear here or impacting the parking and turning area. Councillor Field did refer to the fact that we have a sequential test. The first one is to consider an extension of the dwelling. The second is to consider conversion of an existing building. And the third is to look at a separate outbuilding. In this scenario, it wasn't considered by the applicants suitable to do an extension, and looking at the confinement and relationship with the boundaries and things, we didn't feel that that was something that we could justifiably insist on in this case. The existing garage, the proposed garage building isn't yet built, but obviously they would like to have garages. And there was no particular objection in this particular location and on this particular site to having a small annex building that is closely related to the house.
I'm going to come back to you, Councillor Barnes, but I'm just going to say we have to discuss the application in front of us, not what we'd hope it would be. But carry on.
Well, you might treat this as a comment, therefore, but my question was not about putting an annex on the house, because precisely what Sarah has argued. My question was specifically about why the garage and the annex couldn't be combined, which would actually strengthen the likelihood that this would not be a separate property.
Definitely a comment. Councillor Prochak, you had a question?
Yes, please. As our officer said, it's a confined site. She's used those words. It's a confined site. Just 2 questions. Presumably, Highways have made no comment since they made the comment on the original application. I'm assuming that. But one thing, and Councillor Field reminded us, that is one highways comment that we actually ignored because we thought they were so wrong. And our bus went past the site, it has been cleared, and we were quite shocked. It's a dreadful corner, dreadful, and dangerous. And anybody who knows that road knows that it is dreadful. So highways, do we have to ask for another comment as there will be more people living on that site? And the second question is that I understood our policy was if a member called an application in, that we actually should go and visit the site. I thought that was our policy. I know we're trying to reduce member involvement in the democratic process, but I think it would have helped members to go and have a look.
Sarah on the first one, I'll come to the second.
Yep. This, as we said initially, this was an existing site. It had two accesses, an in and an out. Those in and out driveways, now one will serve one plot and the other driveway will serve the other plot. An annex is not deemed to intensify the use of an access as such because it is by existing family members and their extended family. So there is no additional parking or anything coming about here. It's an existing access and therefore it's not one of those that highways would ordinarily advise on. They would refer us to their standing guidance, which is what's been used. And as I say, those existing accesses there.
And Matt's coming in to save me from having to ask point 2.
In respect of visiting all sites, it's not always necessary. In this case, I think in the presentation we've got photographs of the site, and yeah, it's not our policy to visit every site that's called in.
Having said that, as part of call in, I know you want to look at that procedure and come up with alternatives anyway, and it could well be that that gets included in it. As I say, I know Councillor Colleen and I wanted to meet Mike and do something addressing the call in to make it a bit clearer and easier. Because, for example, it's ward councillors do it, but that's a custom and practice because any councillor can call any application in. So we'll take out for that. So the matter is open for debate if anyone wants to debate this. Councillor Gray.
Sorry to be slow. Can I just ask a quick question? I do know this area very well and I share the concerns. It is a very dangerous junction. Looking at the map, Sarah, are there two entrances both just round that corner for the cars, for the two separate plots? So we're going to have two, if you could just put it up on the map. So yes, so those are just round that sharp corner. We're going to have cars coming out, which makes it even more dangerous.
Yes, as I say, the accesses are existing. They're already there.
The plot's been empty for many years.
No, it's only recently been cleared. People were living in it at the time. I think Councillor Field was possibly referring to the Normanhurst application. No. Where they? Oh, no, I don't know.
Further back than that.
Ah, right, okay. Because I just mentioned that because obviously Normanhurst, the application we had for that and the access was just slightly to the north on the opposite side of the road. And highways didn't feel that there was a highway objection to that at the time either. But, and that was for, as you recall, a huge development which would have had huge numbers of vehicles going in and out.
And of course, this annex that we're discussing would use the same access that's already been approved as part of the previous application. So there may be one or two extra vehicle movements, but we don't know. So I say the matter's open for debate.
I must say I'm very torn on this one, because I really am reluctant to see a layout which actually creates 3 separate buildings, where 2 would be, it seems to me, much more desirable from the point of view of layout. I don't think there will be enormous impact on the high wheel from the 3rd building, but the layout clearly creates the impression that this is intended at some stage in the undefined future to be separable. And I think it is very dangerous given enforcement. If we are going to do it, I would definitely want to put a legal obligation in, so that we can actually take action if they breach a legal condition rather than simply a planning condition. And I might be minded then to change my mind, but at the moment, really on design as much as anything else, I'm rather disinclined to go along with this.
Thank you. Any other comments or anyone? I'm going to come to Kirsty just on that last point about, well, Kirsty or Sarah or Paul, about the legal obligation. I mean, nobody rushed to say, yes, we should, to support Councillor Barnes, but I just wonder, is that something we can do at this stage?
Obviously, the recommendation is to include a planning condition limiting the use of the annex to the family and limiting its use to ancillary. Obviously, a planning condition, you could also potentially use a Section 106 agreement that would be binding on the land, but in this case it was considered appropriate that a condition was applied, and that can be enforced if it's breached with the service of a breach of condition notice. Obviously, that is legally enforceable.
I test Feely by moving that as an amendment to the recommendation at this stage.
Would anyone second adding a legal obligation rather than just relying on the condition? Sorry?
Does it carry more weight, or does the condition still be enforced, or do you think the legal agreement? I'm happy to second it if it secures it.
So it would be a 106 agreement that basically is registered as a local land charge. It lies with the land with subsequent owners.
I'd second Councillor Barnes's amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll come to the final wording at the moment.
You can't have both.
Yeah, our solicitor is saying that you shouldn't be doing both. It's either a condition or a legal agreement.
You have a condition or the 106 agreement, because obviously you're securing the same thing.
Taking Councillor Barnes.
Add as well, though, if you don't put a condition on, people look at a decision notice and they won't see a condition. They'll see a reference that says a Section 106 applies to this site, but if they don't then go and look at the Section 106, they won't necessarily know that it's there. Whereas if there's a condition on a decision, they see that. Sorry.
My question to that
is the same, isn't it? There isn't an
my
awful
question
lot
to
of
that, though,
difference.
is who are these people that are looking at the conditions? Because surely we would tell the applicant would have to be part of the 106 agreement, so they wouldn't be looking for the condition. They know that the 106 has replaced that condition. So I'm not sure what you meant by that.
I'm talking about if the property is sold on.
But I thought it was implied that a land registry check would show that there was a legal agreement on this, saying that it couldn't be. That's
land registry check would show up, and the lawyers for anybody seeking to buy the site would undoubtedly search the land registry.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just listening to the debate on this one, I think that what officers have put forward is, in officers' view, is sufficient to have the condition in place. It is enforceable. It is capable of being monitored. That being said, it is within your gift as a committee to say that you would rather, notwithstanding that advice that you've had, that it is within your gift to say that you would rather have a legal agreement. Some would argue that does give a little bit extra comfort. Some may argue it doesn't necessarily, but on balance, I think most people would say it would give you a little bit extra comfort. We as officers don't think it's required in this case, but it is absolutely within your remit if you feel it is required to do that. And what that means for the applicant effectively is that they would have to sign a Section 106, and I'm saying this if the applicant's listening, they would have to sign a Section 106 to say that they are going to only use it as ancillary accommodation. That would then run with the land in future. So this is a decision for you to make depending upon what your views are, but you've heard the officer advice. Thank you, Chair.
I'm happy to still second that amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, before this item, I emailed the original officer, Katie Edwards, to say I was going to ask her today to explain paragraph 715, which it actually talks about the condition versus the legal agreement. And it says there that the applicant is quite happy to enter a legal agreement, but we thought it wasn't necessary. So I think they're also happy to enter into that agreement. So did I see you, Councillor Pritchard? Did you want to say something?
Yes, I'm just following up from what Councillor Barnes has said. I thought that perhaps in terms of highways, this could be looked at again, deferred or even refused. But highways have already approved it with the previous application. And we have a sequential test. I'm thinking we have more and more applications or permission in principle coming in for annexes within the curtilage of and this curtilage is so cramped. I'm looking at annexes that are being built. I'm thinking of the ones in Robertsbridge, and there's in the main, and one of the best ones I know is a bungalow with an annex. But looking at the bungalow, you wouldn't know there was an annex because the door is at the side, and it's just an extra window at the front, and that's what we're looking for. And in our sequential test, I don't know why the applicant has not ignored the sequential test, because we can't refuse it in terms of many of our policies, but in terms of our sequential test, I would say this is not right to have there's a separate dwelling like that in such a cramped site. I don't know if officers actually went through that sequential test. I'm sure they did, and why this was arrived at. I suppose the architect recommended it. But it doesn't. It doesn't sit comfortably with me, this one.
Sarah?
No, we have the application that we have in front of us to consider.
Yeah. So the first thing we'll consider is on Councillor Barnes's amendment first, which is basically that we replace condition 4 with a section 106 agreement restricting.
I share some of Councillor Procheck's reservations about the application in front of us, because I still don't understand when you have a garage with quite extensive storage above and dormers, why the design didn't combine the garage with some of the annex. And I think that would reduce the number of buildings on the site to 2. But if we were minded to go ahead, and I'm not prejudicing that decision, then I think there should be a legal condition.
Yeah, we'll come to the 106 in a moment. I think Mike wants to come back on that, and then I've seen you, Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, and just listening to the debate and speaking to colleagues, I think just in terms of going back to Councillor Prochak's question before I come back to your comment, Councillor Barnes, I think, you know, the annex and the sequential test is addressed in the report, paragraph 7.1.2 and 7.1.3. You know, it is addressed there. I think Councillor Barnes does make a good point in respect to the 2 buildings versus 3. But I do want to reiterate what Councillor Drayson has already said, is that you're judging the application in front of you. Is the 3 acceptable or not? Officers' clear view is that it is acceptable in those terms. In terms of the highway, Sarah has already explained about their existing accesses, and will one ancillary accommodation materially alter that? As Councillor Drayson has said, it may well result in 1 or 2 extra vehicle trips a day, but is that enough to refuse the scheme? From an officer's point of view, it's very clearly not. It's open to you to come to a different view, but from an officer's view, it's not in those terms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, just to say, on balance, this has it's risks, isn't it, about the third dwelling, but I think the 106 amendment, if it gets accepted, will definitely enhance and in the future. So I move the recommendation to resolve grants with the amended amendment. Do I put that in now? Or?
No, not at the moment, because we haven't agreed the amendment yet. So once we agree the amendment, I'll come back to you. So at the moment, we're voting on Councillor Barnes's amendment to replace condition 4 in the report with a section 106 agreement restricting use to that laid out in condition 4 for family members, for those occupying the family dwelling at plot 2 or plot 2 dwelling. So all those in favour of that change, Councillor Stanger seconded it, yeah. So all those in favour of that amendment, please show. Those against? And abstentions? Yeah. So that was 6 for, 1 against, 1 abstention, so that amendment is carried. Now, did you want to say something, Councillor Stanger?
I'd like to move a recommendation to grant full planning permission, reluctantly, but I think the 106 amendment strengthens in future. So, and we haven't got any statutory consultees objecting, and we are where we are.
Is that seconded, Councillor Prochak? Seconded by Councillor Chowdhury.
Can I just
Yes,
ask?
Councillor.
Because I think we should defer this for a site visit, because I think we would be clearer on where the buildings are and whether it's too confined. I really, as I said earlier, I'm not happy with this application, and we're sort of dodging around with whether it'll be made into a separate dwelling or not. But the fact is that it's the confined site that's causing the problems, and I think we would see it more clearly if we had a site visit. I can move that if that is helpful.
Unfortunately, and I'm just trying to sort it out with Kirsty, we're supposed to take motions in the order they're proposed, and it's been proposed that we grant it. So deferment would come after that, but logically that would be pretty pointless. So 1 moment.
Chairman, I'm reluctant to complicate you, but if it would be possible to find a form of words which said we should defer taking the decision that has been, the motion that's moved, until a future committee, and that could be regarded as an amendment to the motion.
It's funny, that is what I'm discussing at the moment, because the alternative would be to say no, to vote no to the current amendment, or to the motion, but that wouldn't open then the door to deferment, because we will have said no. So that's what I'm just getting my head around.
The motion.
The only
is-
way round it
the
would be
motion
for
is-
the motion to be withdrawn at this stage by the proposer and the seconder. And then we could move to another proposal, and if that is supported. So it's up to you, Councillor Stanger. You want to withdraw your motion at this stage?
So we'll go with that. Go. I'll withdraw for the moment. We'll try the deferral and then we'll go back to it. Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion. We'll go for deferral and then we'll go back to it if that loses.
Right, so that motion is withdrawn. Councillor Prochak, you had a motion.
Move deferral for a site visit.
Is that seconded by anyone? Councillor Gray. So that's the motion then, is deferral to allow for a site visit. Proposed by Councillor Prochak, seconded by Councillor Gray. All those in favour, please show. That's 2. All those against? Sorry, 3. All those against? 4.
Sorry, who voted for 3, 4?
Hands down, please. So for 4 again, it was Councillor Barnes. 4. 4 deferment.
4 deferral.
A revote, 4 deferment.
Who else voted for?
Councillor Prochak, we have to redo it. Julie missed the late hand.
See who was voting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Those against, again, so that Julie gets it. Against, again, Councillor Ganley. Have you changed your mind? Okay, so that's 3, 4, 3 again. Abstentions?
Somebody's not voted. You need to vote, councillor.
Right. At the moment,
The
it's
question is really simple.
it's
Do you want to go and have a
3-3-1,
look?
but one moment. So just to explain to Councillor Creaser, right, because that was unusual that we cancelled the previous motion to allow a discussion and a vote on a motion to defer to allow a site visit. So what we're voting on now is to defer this to another meeting to allow us to have a site visit. And at the moment, 3 people have voted for, 3 against, 1 abstention, but you haven't voted. So I'm going to ask you, unusually, to say, are you voting for deferment, against deferment, or abstaining?
I think to abstain, if you've got any other choice, is not the best idea. To vote for it, that would mean I feel that there's some reason why we should go there, and I can't see that at the moment.
Vote against.
To vote against, oh shoot.
Can I change my vote?
No, we're only dealing with Councillor Creaser. Was that against Councillor
I
Creaser?
think it's going to have to be.
Right. So that's, thank you. Unusual. I'm sure somebody will tell me I've done it totally wrong later. But that was 3 for deferment, 4 against deferment, and 1 abstention. So that is lost. We're not deferring it. Now, Councillor Stanger, have you got something you'd like to say to me?
A move recommendation to grant, subject to the amended extra 106 rather than condition 4.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Chowdhury, you seconded it again. Thank you very much. Right, who said this was easy? Right, so we're now taking a vote on granting full planning permission as amended by including a Section 106 agreement rather than Condition 4, subject to the completion of a 106 agreement. So, hang on.
Can I just add in?
Yes.
Just asking for clarity, really, on what you're voting for. So, are we saying granting full permission and you're delegating to officers to negotiate the Section 106? And once that's signed, you're happy for an approval to be issued? Yes? Thank you.
Yes. And that Section 106 agreement to relate to what was in condition, the amended Condition 4.
So, ordinarily a 106 for an annex would prevent either being sold separately and would also limit the occupation to the family member.
Yep, that's
and not
it.
to be an additional dwelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So, those in favour of granting, as explained, permission with the entering into a subject to a 106 agreement, all those in favour, please show. That's 5-4. Those against? 3. 5-3. That is carried. Thank you, members. Toilet break. 15 minutes. Yes. Thank you. Welcome back. So we now move on to application RR 2025-1129 PN3, which is Edgerton Park Indoor Bowls Club, Edgerton Road, Bexhill. And it's an application to determine if prior approval is required for the installation of photovoltaic panels on the roof of the Indoor Bowls Club. The reason for it coming here is it is council-owned land, and it has just dawned on me that I should declare an interest as a member of Edgerton Park Indoor Bowls Club, which I'd forgotten all about because it's winter and I'm summer and I'm outdoors now. But yes, sorry, I am a member of Edgerton Park Indoor Bowls Club. I can assure you that has no effect on my attitude on this application. The recommendation is that prior approval is not required. No one's registered to speak on this, and we have Matt Worsley, the development manager, talking on this one. Matt, please.
Thank you, Chair. The building this application relates to is at the western end of Edgerton Park. It's a large utilitarian building. It's got a shallow pitched roof, metal panels. The proposal is to put many solar panels on each roof slope, over 700, 350 odd on each side. The type of application this is a prior notification, prior approval application. So it's permitted development subject to certain limitations about protrusion from the roof and distance from the sides, which this proposal meets. And then it's subject to the prior approval of the local planning authority as to the design or external appearance of the development, and in particular the impact of glare on occupiers of neighbouring land. So in respect of the design, before you is a photo montage of what it will look like. They're very typical of a solar array. In terms of glare, the pitch of the roof is very shallow, and you're set away, the aerial photography here shows you're set some distance away from neighbouring properties. They will see the panels, but in terms of glare, it shouldn't directly impact on them. So think of the position of the sun throughout the summer months. It's only going to be when it's very low in the sky that there would be any possibility of glare. That is very low. So based on the permitted development criteria and officers' assessment of the design and impact on occupiers of neighbouring land, the recommendation is that prior approval is not required. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open up to questions, I know Councillor Field, as Cabinet Member, wishes to speak.
Thank you, I do, and not for very long. Just to say I'm delighted to see this application. The more we can have, the better. I was very surprised that there were no public comments, however, because solar panels are normally very emotive to some people. But anyway, they didn't, and I'm glad it's going to be going ahead. But I do have a question, because there's a condition that says they have to be removed within 6 months if they're not being used. I wondered about the disposal of those removed solar panels, because I know that it is not always straightforward. And it's not always very environmentally friendly either. So I just wondered how it was going to happen. Thank you.
I'll take that as my question to the officer, because I suspect we don't have a say in it. We're just, that's their problem when if they cease existing. But yeah.
So we have got the single condition on there about removal, but that is standard from the legislation. So there's no criteria in there about how they're disposed of. Again, it's a government issue. If they wanted that to be controlled by the planning system, they could impose legislation.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Creaser, Councillor Stanger, then Councillor Ganley. Councillor Creaser.
This is just a question. There's 750 of these solar panels. How much output are they likely to create? Is there likely, if there is surplus, is it going to be sold back to the grid? Or is it only enough for whatever is put on there in the first place? Because that's a heck of a lot of lights, really. And if it is, then back into the grid, how would that be dealt with in terms of for Edgerton Park, or whether that would be because we own, or the District Council own the site, whether that would come in-house by way of a small, relatively small income? Thank you.
I've got a feeling that's almost certainly not a planning question. I share your curiosity, but I don't think it's a planning question. I should hope 750 is going to do a lot more than just that building. It's probably doing all of Bexhill or something. But no, it's we can't answer that.
I had a briefing on that not long ago about commercial buildings. So the government's new drive is so the commercial building doesn't pay to put them on. I don't know what the agreement is here, but then they get a set kilowatt hour and the rest goes back into the grid to whatever's overused. So then the business only pays a set much lower kilowatt for commercial buildings to try and meet our solar panel targets, apparently.
Right, so whilst there might be something in it for them, there's nothing in it for the council as the owner of the site, I think. Councillor Ganley, then Councillor Barnes. Councillor Ganley.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that the condition is statutory. Is that correct? Out of idle curiosity, why is it put in place? Why is it necessary? Well, it's necessary to have it because it's in the statute. But I'm wondering, do you know what the reasoning behind it is?
Cheap power?
No, during the removal condition.
Not specifically why this condition was imposed by the legislation, but we've got, other permitted development rights in terms of agricultural buildings, Part 6, the prior notification. There's a requirement there for certain buildings to be removed after however many years. So I would suggest it's to protect character and appearance of the locality, and when things are not in use, they are removed. Whether that's solar panels, which can, some people may think they're not as attractive as a metal panel roof. But certainly in the case of agricultural buildings being removed in the countryside, they obviously have an impact that are necessary to allow agriculture to work.
Yes.
So,
I can understand that.
Like removal of development, that's the general reason to help protect.
Before I come to Councillor Barnes and Councillor Gray, that condition, though, is within 6 months of the cessation of their use, not the building's use. So when they've packed up, they're the things you've got to get taken away. Otherwise, you'll just have a roof of dead stuff doing nothing. So the condition is to take it away when they've stopped being used, not when the building has stopped being used.
Sure, I can. It says their use, the PV panels, etc., shall be removed within 6 months of the cessation of their use. It could mean that it's the solar panels used. It is, yes. So what does that mean? That means that when the building is no longer used?
I would say the building could still be there and still be used or out of use, but if the panels have stopped working, if the panels it's the panels that have to be removed.
They could have broken down.
Otherwise,
they have a limited life anyway.
Yeah. Right, so Councillor,
it's quite a long time.
Councillor Barnes and Councillor Gray. Councillor Barnes.
I think you've just answered both my questions, but I would point out that if you're talking about the PV panels and associated equipment, your next thing should be they rather than the singular, on which they are situated rather than it is.
Good for you.
A walking thesaurus.
Quite right.
I'm sure we can consider that, but if that's what the government have said, I'm not going to challenge the government if it says it. But yeah. Where was I next? Who was next?
Delegate it back to officers to clarify that, and we can adjust the wording accordingly.
Councillor Gray, I think you.
Thank you, Chair. It's not actually a question, but just a comment. Can I comment?
I think we finished the questions.
Good. Just to say that I agree with Councillor Field. This is such a good idea. I know this building extremely well. I walk past it most days. It's ideally situated for solar panels. And if this can help the bowling club to keep running, because it's an indoor bowling club that runs the whole year through, and I know their expenses are very high, and many bowling clubs are closing very sadly. We've already lost the other outdoor one in Edgerton Park. So it's just a brilliant idea, and thank you.
As a bowler, I couldn't possibly comment. Councillor Pritchard.
Move approval. I think it should be compulsory on every farm building, every industrial building, every car park.
The motion that prior approval is not required has been moved by Councillor Pritchard, cancelled by Councillor Stanger. All those in favour of the recommendation that prior approval is not required, please show. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Right. Agenda item 11, application RR 2025-1019 MA. We're going through all the alphabet with our initials today. This is an application in relation to RR 2022-3018P, which is Brooklands Road, land at Bexhill, and it's for a non-material amendment to that previously permitted application to divide the approved scheme into two phases, with phase 1 delivering the medical centre and phase 2 delivering the light industrial units. revise the layout and surface treatment of the medical staff car park, and redistribute existing planning conditions 1 to 31 to align with the phased delivery, including adjusting the timing and sequencing of conditions in relation to commencement, ecological protection, drainage, landscaping, traffic management and construction details to reflect the new phasing. In other words, everything. The recommendation is to approve this non-material minor amendment with conditions 1, 14, 21, 22, 30 and 31 remaining unchanged, all the others being amended to incorporate the phasing, an additional one on 32 which relates to badgers. So, Matt, if you could present your report, please. Yes, wait for it, Councillor Stanger.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a non-material amendment to a planning permission which came before you around 2 years ago. It was delegated to approve, subject to a 106 and the permission was for a 3-storey medical centre and 3 business units on, next slide please. Sarah, slide please. So you've got two fields. The eastern field would be where the medical centre is. To the field to the west is where the 3 business units are. The original permission was, in effect, 1 phase. At this time, the focus is on delivering the medical centre, and to enable that to come forward quicker and more efficiently, it needs to be phased, and that is the subject of this non-material application. It's still proposing the medical centre. There is a small change to the parking arrangements to move it away from that northwestern corner for ecological reasons. Within the report, paragraph 3.3, it explains what a non-material amendment is. It also refers to the planning practice guidance, which explains there's no statutory definition of non-material. It depends on the context of the overall scheme, and something that is non-material in one context may be material in another. So you always look at it on a case-by-case basis. Officers' view in this particular case is that the splitting it from 1 phase into 2 has no impact, and the very small changes to moving 4 or 5 parking spaces around has no impact on highway safety or amenities of living conditions of neighbouring properties, or any other planning consideration, and therefore that is why the recommendation is to grant the non-material amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions for the officer? Councillor Stanger, you had your hand up earlier. Councillor Barnes.
It's probably not material, but splitting into phases will affect the timing of the bringing forward of the industrial units, and extend the construction time. Have we any idea? I can understand why you want to do it in phases. Have we anything on the timing of the second phase?
I don't have that information, I'm afraid. Don't know if anyone else can answer.
No, I was just going to suggest, though, if it is in one complete thing and it's still waiting for what would be on phase 2 before they even start phase 1, the length of time is going to be the same. But this lets them start on phase 1 whilst waiting to find takers for phase 2.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, there is an urgency to building the medical centre in terms of its funding and things, so they need to be getting on with that now. As Councillor Drayson just said, there is a little bit of a lead-in time to do the industrial units, and hence wanting to get on with the medical centre now and phase the conditions so that they only need to discharge that part of the condition that relates to the medical centre site, and then they can come in with the details to fully discharge for the industrial part of the site when they're ready to move on that part of the development.
Councillor Gray, it's been,
yes.
yeah, that hand's been loitering.
Thank you, Chair. Sarah, I'm just interested to know, do we know how we're going to staff the medical centre once it's built? Are they going, can you answer this question? It's not a planning, but it's just out of interest. You can't answer that
That's
question.
another out of the interest question.
I'm sorry.
Who knows? Right to the, go on, but Matt's going to just shoot me
Our
down.
GP surgery is going to close.
Go on, Matt.
I can't answer the specific question, but on the original planning permission, with the section 106 that was attached, we did secure a local employment and skills plan, which will prioritise. It will look to, focus on local employment and training opportunities. So there will be a focus there.
So they won't close local GP surgeries and move them to there. That's what I thought that was.
Well, they might eventually, but not before.
Yeah, so I mean the local employment and skills plan, it will be, it'll focus on construction, but it could also include who's employed in the future there.
Councillor Ganley to the rescue.
Move approval.
Thank you.
You're wittering.
Do you have a question still?
No, I would say
No.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, no, we can. Does anyone second that motion to move approval?
I second.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's now open for debate. If you wanted to say something,
I'd say this
you
is a
can
positive
now.
move because it's stalled and we had it go red on the capital programme. There was a lot of concern about it, about the NHS England going, and I know as from loads of things. And phase 2, it currently is not viable, I believe, by senior colleagues. So, yeah, it's really good. Get the medical centre. We get time and time again, we're not building infrastructure. This is a bit of infrastructure, and it's positive, and it will benefit St Mark's, Bexhill and Rother. True. Thank you. And I second the motion.
Yeah, no, we'd already got you seconded. Any other comments before I put it to the vote? No, right. Right, so all those in favour of approving the non-material minor amendment with conditions 1, 4, 21, 22, 30 and 31 remaining unchanged, and all the other conditions are amended to incorporate phasing with a new condition 32. One moment, I've got to vote as well. Thank you. That is carried 8 unanimously. Thank you. Just before I go to agenda item 12, I just want to say, by the way, I hope the committee agree with me that I very much like the enforcement information we're getting now with the details from the officer about what action they've taken and what it's actually very useful, and you realise they are working. So, and if you could pass that on, please, Mike. Thank you. So. Agenda item 12, for members to note that as is customary, there's no scheduled meeting of the Planning Committee in August. So the date and time for future site inspections will be Tuesday the 2nd of September, departing from the Town Hall at 9:30 if there are any. And the next committee meeting is on Thursday the 4th of September, starting at 9:30. That brings us to the end of this month's Planning Committee meeting. Thank you to everyone for their contribution and goodbye.